Now let's create a new module, but this time for our users. It's a module that's going to manage everything about our user content. So in my terminal, I'm going to use the ng generate again, and we're going to generate a module. And this time I'm going to call it user. Now we have it in here. We're going to do the same thing as we did before. I'm going to create a new entry inside our app routing module. So path, it will be user, and load children, it will load our user module. And the class name is user module. Now inside our user module, we need to create our routes in here again. So we're going to import routes and router module. We're going to create the same routes array. And we're going to initialize that array here in our imports. For child routes. Now let's create a page for the user profile. And generate page user inside the folder and user profile. Now again, we updated our main route. So let's go back in here and remove that entry. And inside our routes array, just gonna paste it in here and remove the user folder because we already on it. And for the user profile, we're gonna use the ID as well. So an ID. Now every time someone reaches the user, it's gonna load this user module file, and this is the only one that we have here at the moment. But this is fine, we're gonna create more routes after. So let's go to our profile and start to add some placeholders in here. We're gonna do the same with the buttons at the end. And we're also gonna add the back button before on the start. Here's gonna be the username, which you're gonna add later. For now, let's add a button so we can go straight to this page because we don't have a root users. We don't have the user list yet. So let's go on our home page and we're gonna add a button over here so we can take the user to the user profile just for us to use now while we're developing. So I'm gonna create an Ion button and just a simple router link that takes to the user and some user ID. And for the button information, view a user profile. Now back in our user profile page, we can just add some content over here. I'm also gonna add a grid again so we can customize where the things are gonna be placed in. So grid, Ion row, and Ion call. Now inside we can use Ion thumbnail, and this is just a placeholder for a normal image tag. For the Ion image right now, I like to use a website called Pravatar. It's pravatar.cc, and here you can just take a link and it will display a random image every time we reload the page. So let's go back to our page and I'm going to add it as a source here. And for the image size, I'm just going to do 150. Now just below we can add an Ion text. Ion text is just a wrapper so you can put colors in your text and so on. And username, let's do a Twitter for now. Now let's load the server and check it out how it looks like for now. So here in our home page, we have our user. If you click in there, you go to the user profile page. Now let's do some CSS to center this in the middle of the page. In order to customize the Ionic components, you have some properties that you can add to it. Some components has more, some none. So let's take a look at the Ion thumbnail. First, if you go down to media, here you have the Ion thumbnail. And if you scroll down, we have two CSS properties that we can add: border radius and the size. We're gonna use both. So back in our code, so in our CSS, we can just tag the thumbnail, and here we need to use the dash to specify, because that's a custom component. So let's do 150 pixels. That's the size that we mentioned on the Pravatar link. Border radius, let's do 50%, so you make a round image. Also add a margin auto, and this will center the image in the middle of the page. There we go. Just see, if every time you reload, you're gonna appear a new image over there. Now if you right click and do inspect, and you highlight our grid, Ion grid, you can see that our grid is that small, and it will never be able to reach the center in here of the page without increasing the size of it. So let's add a height to the grid. %. Now back in our page, if you inspect again, Ion grid, now it's taking all the space. We also need to add for the row, because the grid is larger now, but the row is still small. So whenever you want to reach the full size of the page, you need to edit both of these components. Now Ion row. Here the height, I'm just going to do only 8%, so it doesn't stay right in the middle, it stays a little bit higher. And we have some properties that we can align the items, so we do align item center and text align center as well. And this will center vertical and on the horizontal way. So now we have it here in the middle. Now so far it looks alright. Let's add a button here so the user can click and edit their own profile. For this, we're gonna add a new entry inside our header over here at the end array. So Ion button and an Ion icon. Now the icon, I'm just gonna add a name of create. And I'm adding create because the Ionicons, it does not have an edit button. If you do edit here, that's the closest one to an edit. So you can also copy this one and paste, but it's basically the same what we wrote over here. Now if you look at our page again, we have our button over there.